Welcome to Trial Site News podcast series. Today, we are pleased to welcome Mark Erlander, Chief Executive Officer at Cardiff Oncology, Inc. Now, Cardiff Oncology, Inc. is a clinical stage biotechnology company with the singular mission of developing new treatment options for cancer patients in indications with the greatest medical need. So, Mark, thank you for joining our podcast today. We are honored to have you on the show.
Well, likewise, I'm also honored to be here. And thank you all for taking time out of your life to listen to this podcast. I really would like to talk to you about Cardiff Oncology and what we're doing here and our passion for cancer patients and what we're, how we're doing that and our involvement in various clinical trials with a drug that we have that we think has a lot of promise for particularly for colorectal cancer patients as well as other cancer patients. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. So just a quick background about yourself. You went to UC Davis and you also went to UCLA and you had a PhD in neuroscience and molecular biology. How did you transition into your professional research?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it's always about, I was always a curious kid, liked science, but I also grew up in from parents who were immigrant parents who were also came from a lineage of farmers. So I was very interested in agriculture. I was very interested in organic gardening and a lot of things like that when I was young, raising chickens, and we had the opportunity to do all those things. But I was fascinated by doing more experiments and being able to figure out how to grow things better or more naturally, and also, a lot of different things in the ag world. So that's what got me to UC Davis. UC Davis is a huge, well-known land-grant college that has agriculture. But I soon realized that even though that was interesting, it was probably should be a hobby of mine. And I got very interested in biochemistry and how the cell works. And that's where I really started. And I ended up graduating with a biochemistry degree at Davis, and then went on to stay in biochemistry at Iowa State. But when I was at Iowa State, I was still doing more agricultural biochemistry. I suddenly realized that there was a revolution taking place, and that was biotechnology. And also within that revolution was also the ability to approach studying how the brain works by that. So I actually terminated my PhD program at Iowa State and got a master's there, and then went off to the Brain Research Institute at UCLA and really did got my training in molecular biology and as well as in neuroscience. But once I did this, I went down the road to San Diego, to La Jolla, specifically to the Scripps Research Institute in molecular biology, and got even more interested in technology and how we could harness technology to approach diseases in general. So I really went out of the scope of the brain research and realized that there was maybe opportunity to do something in oncology. So I was at Scripps. I was an assistant professor there for a little bit and realized that I'd be more interested in applying it. So I walked across the street to, as they say, the dark side, to industry. And I got a job at Johnson & Johnson and was able to really expand my horizons there in big pharma, and was given a great opportunity there. Eventually became a research fellow and be able to do drug discovery and also a lot of genomic technologies. And really, I realized then was that at this time, the human genome was being sequenced, and for the first time, and there was a lot of promise of what could we now learn from this, and could we have new drugs because of this? And I realized that the first place you could go to make a big difference, I thought, in my lifetime, was oncology. And so that's why I went there and got involved in that. And so that's how I really started and how I got to where I was. It's always a journey, but I think in the journey for my journey, I always asked myself the same question: how can I make a difference? How can I do something now in my lifetime that I think will impact other human beings in a positive way, and this particularly in cancer patients? So that's how I got started.
Now, from 94 to 2000, you worked in a large pharmaceutical company.
J&J, yeah.
Yeah. So what made you pivot and move into a smaller, less resource intensive biotech companies?
Well, either I was really stupid, because some of my colleagues, they're like retiring. You know what I mean? They're saying, they're taking their package, and I'm like going, I'm not in a big pharma. I'm not taking a package. So yeah, well, I think it was really because you know how it is when you're in a big organization. You can some sort of feel like sometimes you are a cog in the wheel. And I thought that in a small biotech, I could have the opportunity to really truly feel the edge of science, is one way of putting it. Now, that also has its risks, financial risks, puts your family through sometimes stress, because you can't raise enough money in a particular biotech you're in. So there's a stress associated with it, but I've never looked back. I've always have no regrets. But I do say that J&J really gave me the foundation and gave me the ability in a safe environment there to really explore a lot of things I was interested in, and then be able to go out into a more, how should I put it, environment that's a little more stressful, but also has, even in my mind, even greater rewards, because it's really up to you and what can you do, and it really challenges you in a very different way. So I am a little jealous of some of my colleagues who stayed at J&J and are retiring, but on the other hand, I would never have it any other way than where I am today.
So let's then talk directly about Cardiff Oncology. We
Sure.
know it was previously known as Trovagene. Can you briefly describe the company, what it focuses its research and development on, its age, and its current status?
Yeah, when I came to Trovagene, it was really an oncology diagnostics company. And in the real world, it became very apparent that because of the reimbursement of tests, we were doing diagnostic tests in cancer and helping patients make better decisions, and their treating physicians better decisions on therapy based on the sort of the genetic or genomic makeup of their tumor. So it was very exciting work, and we had some very cool technology. But at the end of the day, a test is a test is a test, and you get reimbursed X amount of money. And so there was really no appreciation of the technology per se. And that's just the real world. And so it became very apparent that our board at Trovagene back in 2016 said, look, we're going to give you really the green light here as a company to go off and really transform the company from a diagnostic company to a therapeutic company. And I was the chief scientific officer at the time. So I had the opportunity to be involved in that process. And it was very exciting. So we went hunting for drugs. And really, it was at the end of 2016, we were on the doorstep of an organization in Milan, Italy, called Nerviano Medical Sciences. And they had been at one time Pfizer Oncology's R&D group, but then got spun out, and now they had a business model of licensing the drugs they had in development, and they had a great reputation in oncology drug development. So we looked at 5 drugs, and we settled down on one of them. And in March of 2017, we licensed a drug from Nerviano that already had been in humans initially just for safety. So we knew that it was a safe drug. And really from there, the company totally changed from being a diagnostic company to a therapeutic company, and really a small group. We have 14 employees in the company now at Cardiff. And that was, so back in March of 2017, we launched 3 different programs of clinical trials, and one of them in leukemia, another one in prostate cancer, and the third, which is our flagship, was in KRAS mutated metastatic colorectal cancer. And so it's been really a wild, exciting ride. And about 6 months ago, the board gave me the reins to be the CEO, because I had been the CSO. And so I did know the science. And I was really excited about the fact that they would entrust in me the company as a CEO. And so it's been a wild ride, but it's been a lot of fun.
Now, can you break down your current pipeline? Your existing products are mCRC, mCRPc, and AML. Can you tell us more about the programs and corresponding investigational therapies?
Yeah, absolutely. So we licensed a drug called onvansertib. They always have these weird names that we can't even pronounce sometimes. But we licensed onvansertib, and this drug basically inhibits a key enzyme in how tumor cells divide. And so if you inhibit this, then tumor cells will die. And so that's really the essence of it. So then we look to see, well, which cancer types really are very dependent on use of this enzyme in how they grow. And so leukemias, particularly acute myeloid leukemia, a very aggressive leukemia, is dependent on our drug target, which is PLK1. It's polo-like kinase 1 is the enzyme. And what we did, sort of back up a minute there, is we looked at a lot of different indications. When we say indications, what we mean is different cancers that we could, in essence, attack with this drug and have patient benefit, potential, patient benefit. And some of the ones that became clear were this leukemia, as well as castrate-resistant prostate cancer, so metastatic, in the metastatic setting, so patients who have metastatic prostate cancer really needed an unmet need there, as well as another really huge unmet need is in colorectal cancer, where patients really, if they have this particular oncogene, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit more, called KRAS, this very deleterious oncogene that really drives a very aggressive tumor and a very bad prognosis for patients. And really all they have in the armamentarium today are two different chemo cocktails. And so no targeted therapies per se. So those are really, there are other cancer types that we're looking at. We are a small company. We have, limited resources like everyone else. So you have to kind of pick your best ones to go after. And then of course, as we continue to grow as a company and have more resources, we certainly are now looking at other cancer types as well, in particular pancreatic cancer.
So let's then shift to how your company manages its clinical trials. Do you use CROs or do you manage yourself? And have you found for these specialized cancer studies that certain trial sites work better?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Like I said earlier, we are a group of 14 people. And so we have a chief operating officer here, Vicki Kellerman, and she runs all of our clinical trials, but she has, she's partnered with a really outstanding CRO. So we use a CRO, it's called PRA. And they have been just extraordinary for us in all of our trials. And so, but yes, we do outsource that, as well as some other things, because we are a small company. We have found that bringing some of these things in-house doesn't make sense. And quite frankly, it's much better in using a great collaborative groups, a CRO such as PRA.
Now, for listeners who may not know much about KRAS mutations in cancer, can you give a brief overview of precisely what that is?
Yeah, KRAS it's in essence stands for a gene that has mutations in it that will drive cancer. KRAS was the first gene to be discovered that could cause cancer if it was mutated, and that was back in, I believe, in the early 1980s. And it was thought to be actually, when people discovered it, they thought, oh my gosh, because about anywhere from 25 to 30% of all cancers have a KRAS mutation, they thought, well, let's target this, and this could be really fantastic. We could really make a huge impact. But it became over the years to be what people called an undruggable target. In essence, there are a lot of failures. The way we kind of say it in drug development words is that there's a large cemetery out there of failures in drug development for, in essence, targeting KRAS. But KRAS really, what it is in essence, it's a protein that cycles between being active and inactive. And in cancer cells, they have mutations in KRAS that's such that you always have the light switch on. So it turns the light switch on all the time. You can't turn it off. And so when the light switch is on in the tumor cell, it drives these cells to divide and to proliferate and to become a cancer, a tumorigenesis. And so the goal has been to turn this light switch off. And how do you do it? Do you attack KRAS specifically, or do you do something downstream that KRAS is dependent upon? And we've chosen the latter. Our drug really works downstream of RAS, the KRAS oncogene, and we're able to, in essence, stop it in its tracks, so that it cannot it cannot have the tumorigenesis that it normally, in essence, stimulates.
Now, are there any other notable cancer-promoting mutations other than A549 genes that relate to KRAS?
Well, I mean, I don't know. A549, for me, and I'm just saying that's a lung cancer cell line that's been used extensively in development. It has a KRAS mutation, and it's been studied. If I'm answering your question correctly, I'm quite familiar with that cell line. It's been used in lung cancer a lot to study and to develop drugs around KRAS mutations in lung. Now, we're in colorectal cancer, so we use different cell lines than that have a KRAS mutation for our preclinical work.
So, as mutation, KRAS is the driver of cancer. Can KRAS deletion lead to tumor regression?
Well, that's a great question. I think the answer could be yes. I mean, if you are able to go in there and, in essence, delete KRAS activation, I think it'd be more, not so much deletion, but a sort of an inhibition of it. But that could be deletion. So, yeah, I think that could lead to that. I think that people try to do that by inhibiting KRAS from doing what it's trying to do. And that's done either directly. There are several very well-known programs going on right now that attack a very specific KRAS mutation, and some of the big pharma are involved in. It's called G12C. And there they've gone after one specific KRAS mutation and, in essence, shut it down so it can no longer do what it's deleteriously doing. And then there's ways of approaching like what we're doing, which is working downstream of all of the KRAS mutations. So we're trying to have a more pan approach to inhibiting the action of KRAS. But to answer your question, yes, that's possible. And I think the way we look at it is not so much maybe deletion, but we say inhibition.
Yeah, it sounds like a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So let's then shift back to your company and let's talk about the commercialization. What is the overall outlook for the commercialization of your company's products?
Well, we're a small biotech, as you know, and what we're good at, I think, what we really get excited about is innovation and really going after something new and bringing something new to the table that can be for the armamentarium for a treating physician. Now, being a biotech, you're all about discovery as well as clinical development and running of trials. Commercialization, of course, is a different kettle of fish. That's a different kind of company. It's a different kind of business. So I think we would have to definitely partner probably with a company that does that. That's a different kettle of fish, as we say. And so the answer to your question is yes, of course, we would want to commercialize it. Whether we as a company do that or we partner, I think it's probably more of a partnership in some shape or form.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So in conclusion here, now we have a large audience, often with accredited investors, partners, and health systems. What key takeaways would you like to leave the Trial Site Network with about Cardiff Oncology?
Well, Cardiff Oncology is a passionate group of scientists and business people. We are really very interested in bringing something new to the table for really adding a significant new entity as in the armamentarium of treating physicians for some of these cancers, which are just horrible. The outcomes are dismal, and these patients really have nowhere to go. And we believe that we can we believe that we are bringing something to the table that will be helpful. And so that's really, that's what gets us up every day and makes us work hard here at Cardiff. As far as investments, we're publicly traded. We're on NASDAQ. I won't be bashful in saying you can always buy our stock on the open market, but and we of course would greatly appreciate that. But I think that also, we are a kind of company that please keep us on your radar as an investor. We think that we are bringing something new to the table. For those people out there that are, patients or involved in that side of it, I just would say that, we're working as fast as we can to get something there approved that can then be another quiver or in the or another part of the armamentarium for the treating physician. So we were moving as fast as we can. That requires money. We have raised money just recently, and we will continue to use those proceeds to drive as fast as we can to get across that finish line of an approval.
Well, and we will certainly be keeping an eye on your company as things continue to develop. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I really appreciate this time. You can always go to www.cardiffoncology.com. We have a great website, talks about what we're doing, plus behind the scenes, all the science behind it, as well as all of our press releases. We're publicly traded, so we have everything out there that you can look at us and check us out.
Sounds good. And it's CardiffOncology.com, correct?
Yes, CardiffOncology.com. We're in the San Diego area. We're in Sorrento Valley, which is a large number of small biotechs that we all start here. The rent is cheap, and we get to do what we can do. Anyway, so you can check us out there.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll put a link in the description below as well.
Right.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We know you're busy, and we appreciate you taking the time to stop by.
I love these kind of opportunities, and gets me an opportunity to brag about Cardiff Oncology and what we're doing. And I tell you, we have got such a great team here. Everybody here is motivated. They're excited about what they're doing. I have to tell you, I get into true sign of that is I drive in at 7 a.m. and everybody's already here. That just gives you kind of an idea of what's going on. I beat people when I get here at 6 a.m. I'm the first one in, but everybody beats me at 7 a.m. So that just gives you an idea of the flavor of the excitement and the energy here at Cardiff Oncology. And we really appreciate the opportunity here to share that with you guys.
Well, again, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.